They warned her before she ever set foot on the dusty platform, before the train's whistle faded into the wide, unforgiving sky before she saw him, standing there like a shadow carved from leather and iron. "He's dangerous," the letters said, passed from hand to trembling hand among women who whispered over candlelight in fear, a cowboy who kept to himself. A man rumored to have blood on his hands. A widower, some said, though no one could explain how or why. When Eleanor folded the last warning letter and tucked it into her worn carpet bag, her fingers shook, not because she believed every word, but because she had nothing left to lose. Her old life had burned itself down to ash, an orphaned childhood, a factory job that chewed up her youth, a future that promised only more hunger and silence. A mail-order marriage was not a dream. It was a gamble. And yet, when she stepped down from the train and finally saw him, the fear twisted into something sharper, more confusing. He was taller than she imagined, broad-shouldered, his black hat casting a shadow over eyes that seemed to watch everything at once. The townspeople lingered at a distance, pretending not to stare, pretending not to judge her for standing so close to a man they feared. He didn't smile. He didn't reach for her hand. He simply tipped his hat just enough to be polite, and said her name as if he had practiced it in private. The ride to his ranch passed in tense silence, the wagon wheels creaking like they carried secrets heavier than luggage. Eleanor noticed how he drove the horses gently, how he slowed near a washout without being asked, how his gaze kept flicking back to her, not possessive but alert, as though he were guarding something fragile. When they reached the ranch, the land stretched wide and lonely yet strangely peaceful, and the house, though plain, stood sturdy against the wind. Inside, everything was clean, orderly, almost careful, as if he had prepared for her arrival long before the letter ever reached him. That night, as they ate in silence, she finally found her voice and asked the question that burned in her chest. "They say you're dangerous," she whispered. His jaw tightened, and for a moment she thought she had made a terrible mistake. Then he looked at her fully, really looked at her, and his voice dropped low, steady, unshaking. "Only if someone tries to hurt you." In that instant, Eleanor realized the warnings had been incomplete. Danger, she understood, could mean many things. Some men were dangerous because they destroyed. Others were dangerous because they protected. And as the wind howled outside and the lamp flickered between them, she felt for the first time in years something she barely recognized, safety wrapped in steel. If this story is already pulling you in, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because this is only the beginning of a love forged in fire and silence. Life with a man the town feared was not easy, but it was honest. Days turned into weeks, and Eleanor learned the rhythm of the ranch, the early mornings, the long rides, the quiet evenings where words were few but meaning was deep. She saw how people watched him when he rode into town, how conversations died at his approach, how children were pulled closer. Yet she also saw the truth behind the rumors. She saw him fix a widow's fence without payment, leave food on a starving family's porch in the dead of night, and stand between a drunk, raging man and a trembling shopkeeper without ever raising his voice. The past eventually found them, as it always does. One evening, a stranger rode in, eyes full of old hatred, a gun resting too easily at his side. Eleanor learned then what dangerous truly meant. The man accused her husband of a killing long ago, a fight that had ended, with one man dead and another, cursed with a reputation he never tried to outrun. The stranger threatened to take Eleanor as leverage, to make the cowboy pay for sins already judged by fate. Eleanor's fear returned, sharp and cold, but this time it did not paralyze her. She watched her husband step forward, calm as stone, and say the words that would echo in her heart forever. "You don't get to touch her." The confrontation ended the only way it could, with violence that was swift and final. But when it was over, he dropped the gun as if it burned him and went to Eleanor, kneeling before her as though he expected her to leave. Instead, she reached for him, hand steady, heart certain. "They warned me you were dangerous," she said softly. "They didn't warn me you were brave." In the days that followed, the town's whispers changed. Fear turned into respect. Distance turned into gratitude. Eleanor stood beside him, no longer a mail-order bride bought out of desperation, but a woman who chose her place, her man, her future. She understood now that love was not always gentle, not always soft-spoken. Sometimes love stood like a wall between you and the world, willing to be feared so you could be safe. And as the sun set over the ranch, painting the sky in golden fire, Eleanor knew she had not escaped danger at all. She had married it, and in doing so, found her greatest protection. Peace, Eleanor learned, was not the absence of fear, but the decision to live despite it. After the night, the stranger came and left his threat bleeding into the dirt. The ranch changed, not in the land or the sky, but in the way the world seemed to finally see the man she had married. Word traveled fast across open plains. The same mouths that once whispered his name with dread now spoke it with respect, even gratitude. Yet inside the walls of their home, something deeper was unfolding, something quieter and far more fragile. Eleanor began to notice the weight her husband carried when he thought she wasn't looking, the way his shoulders stiffened at sudden noises, the way his eyes lingered too long on old scars in the mirror, the way sleep sometimes refused to come. Danger had protected her, yes, but it had also isolated him for years, locking him into a role he never chose but never denied. One night, as a storm clawed at the windows and the wind screamed like old memories, Eleanor finally spoke the truth she had been holding back. She told him she was not afraid of his past, not afraid of what people said, not even afraid of the man he became when forced to defend. What frightened her was the thought that he believed he had to face the world alone. Her words broke something open inside him. He confessed then, not with drama or tears, but with raw honesty, the killing, the choice that saved another but cost him his name, the years of silence he accepted as punishment. Eleanor listened, her hand wrapped tightly around his, grounding him in the present. "You don't need to protect me from the world anymore," she said. "Let me stand with you in it." From that moment, their marriage shifted from survival into partnership. Eleanor rode into town beside him. She spoke when he stayed silent. She smiled when others hesitated. Slowly, the distance between him and the people he protected closed. The cowboy who was once feared became known as a man of his word, a husband who treated his wife like a treasure rather than a possession. Seasons passed marked by hard work, shared laughter, and the quiet miracle of belonging. On the anniversary of her arrival, Eleanor stood on the porch watching the sunset spill fire across the land that had once terrified her. Her husband joined her, placing his coat around her shoulders, not because she was weak, but because he loved her. She thought of the warnings, the letters, the fear that almost turned her back. She smiled, knowing now how incomplete those words had been. Yes, he was dangerous, but only to those who threatened what he loved. To her, he was home. And in choosing him, she had not married fear or violence or rumor. She had married loyalty, courage, and a love strong enough to stand against the world. If this final chapter touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because more unforgettable stories of love, strength, and redemption are coming next.